Whiskey Galore is set on the lovely island of Toddy. We hone in on Mr. Macroon, who has two lovely daughters, Peggy and Katrina, who hopefully have two very handsome men at their side, George Campbell, my character, and Sergeant Odd, who comes to the island. And when the cabinet minister runs aground and the island dries up for whiskey, we think and realise that we very quickly have to somehow find ourselves in a plethora of whiskey, which we're able to do. And George's character in particular has to make sure that whiskey happens for the Réitich, which is a very sort of old traditional Gaelic, sort of like almost rites of passage in a way for a young man and woman before their wedding. And if there's no whiskey, there's no Réitich. If there's no Réitich, there's no marriage. So that has to happen. So I played George Campbell, who is the schoolmaster on the island of Toddy, and he's very much in love with Katrina Macroon, and he has a sort of overbearing mother, Lady Campbell, who is quite a severe woman, a tragically embittered and broken woman from the passing of George's father, George Senior, and George is very much held in that part of his life as well. He's not really been able to grow up beyond about 15 or 16 years old. Kind of life in a straitjacket, really. And so his whole movement and journey is about breaking free from himself as a younger boy, breaking free from the tragedy of his mother and his father, and falling in love and accepting the love for his beautiful lady Katrina, and then sort of taking the responsibility himself to make sure that whiskey comes on the island, so as that the Réitich can happen, so as that the wedding can happen, and that's him at his sort of happiest point, really. It's not tricky to fall in love with someone like Ellie Kendrick. She's brilliant, she's a terrific actress and a very good friend. And so for George, that he's just besotted by Katrina and isn't really able to articulate those feelings. He feels them. He's a very emotional character, but it's so compressed because of this sort of burden and weight of Mrs. Campbell that it's not until the pop corks, quite literally, or the cork pops, it should be that much, shouldn't it? Then there's a sort of gushing flow of whiskey. And Gillis, I remember one of the earliest chats we had, spoke about the need for this built-up tension, and then pop, and then George's sort of spirit almost mimics the journey of the whiskey in the film. It's a very familiar thing to these people, it's whiskey resonates through your heart and your body, through your pulse, and it really does. So I mean, you maybe, or one does, underestimate the power of whiskey, and I've noticed that a lot. Certainly, in the process of doing this job, how huge a thing and how huge an impact it has on people that spend a lot of time with it. Good and bad, I'm sure, but it's been a very positive learning experience getting to know all that. But it's one of the biggest characters in the story as well, so we've had to properly revere it in the way that it deserves.
I play Sergeant Odd, Sergeant Donald Odd, I believe. Well, he was Sergeant Major Alfred Ernest Odd in the books. So to this day I don't actually know why that change was made, but I'll go with it. Who has previously, it's implied, been posted on the island to help train the Home Guard. And then he's been away in the war and he's fought in the Africa campaign. But while he was on the island in the first place, he met Peggy Macroon and fell madly in love, as you would, and comes back with the intention of asking for her hand in marriage.
My quota is finished. There is no more whiskey. The island is dry.
Day has brought a terrible shock. Nothing but tea.
What is your cargo?
And whiskey for New York! 50,000 cases!
Without the whiskey, you can't have a wedding.
Some might say this is blackmail.
Ah.
There is whiskey hidden in this town.
It's Mr. Brown to tell us the customs cutter is approaching the bay.
Hide the whiskey!
Aye, Father. We love the very bones of you.